Hi, true crime fans. I have a little cat that's getting pretty close. Hi, Luna. Okay, so now we are up to our flight about shooters. I'm not going to shoot some shots because that's getting a little difficult for my non-alcoholic lifestyle. I just can't take it. So we have first the Ethan Crumbley parents update case on what's going on. And we have, this is from a winery around the Great Lakes. So this is Leelanu Cellars Winter White Bubbley. Yeah, and this case took place in the winter when it occurred. Or around there. It happened in Oxford, Michigan, prior to Christmas, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And this was about the parents, the recent, what do you call it? This is the problem, guys. Once we start drinking, we get into a number of cases. It's a little harder with the dyslexia and the drinking now. Okay, so let's take a sip. Oh, it's kind of a dry white. I like I said, it's bubbly, so I like it. I'm a fan of things that taste like sugar because I don't really like the taste of alcohol, which is weird that I'm doing a true crime grapevine themed podcast, but let's just go with it. So the Crumbley parents are going to court, and there's been some new filings. The prosecution is trying something, a strategy that's different, and to do this strategy, they're making motions. We call these, if you listen to Emily D. Baker at the Emily D. Baker Show on YouTube, and she's also on all the socials at Emily D. Baker. She talks about motions in lemonade, but they're called motions in lemonade. In limine means like pre-trial. They're before it happens motions. So they're pre-trial motions. When we talk about the Depp Heard case at the end of this, for our celebrity case, we'll be talking about the fact that often the pre-trial motions might be sealed so as not to prejudice the jury. And then once the case is all over, it's unsealed and available to be produced at the cost of whatever per page from the court. So these motions in limine are being made now. And the prosecution is trying something different. They're using a strategy that has been used in cases of terrorism, and it's called, I have to read this, excusez-moi, for my old eyes. It's a pathway to violence is what the name is. And that strategy is basically saying that the Crumbley parents are being charged with this like involuntary manslaughter because they provided Ethan, who was 15 at the time of the shooting, a pathway to violence. And this pathway was their entire family culture and lifestyle of violence and arguing and manipulating, using Ethan from the time of at least a 6-year-old and placing him as a pawn between the parents and exposing him to infidelity and interpersonal violence, domestic violence, as well as ignoring when he very clearly said, I need help. Not just showing that he needed help, but like saying. So what the prosecutors need to show this pathway of violence are they want to use this information that otherwise in cases would typically be seen as like family deficits and interpersonal inappropriateness that really is just going to prejudice the jury against people. It's just like dirty laundry to be a character assassination. But in this case, to get all that information in, the prosecutors are saying, we're just not wanting to say they're horrible people. We're saying these specific acts that they took and exposed their son to over a course of time eventually laid the background, laid the pathway to this violent act. It's not just that they did nothing that day. It's not just that they bought the weapon, gave the child the weapon, even though in Michigan you're not allowed to own a weapon at that age. Michigan doesn't have strict like locking up weapons laws. So, but they're saying, look, they created this situation over years by this pathway to violence through exposing Ethan to their interpersonal violence, their domestic violence, and then also in turn ignoring when he needed them, not addressing his issues. And Ethan expressed serious issues. Apparently one of the items that they want to use is Ethan's journal that was in his backpack the day of the shooting. He expressed in that journal that he was hearing voices. He thought there were demons in his house. His symptomology is similar to past cases where, like the Aiden Clune, where when we see, and perhaps Erica Johnson, when we see people who are very paranoid, unnecessarily so, when they're hearing voices though, like literally imagining things, think the people around them are against them, imagine that there are entities. These are not people that we give weapons to, because that is a sign of delusion, and violence could happen unintentionally because the person isn't in their right mind. And it appears that Ethan over and over again expressed his feelings of fright and thinking there was something in the house with him over and over to his parents, begging them to help him. And to all, according to these filings anyways, it appears that they ignored him. There weren't, like, he would say, please just call, like, I think there's ghosts in the house, please just text me back. The mom and the dad were busy, apart from each other, having extramarital affairs, spending their money on horses, other interests, and ignoring their child. So creating the pathway to violence, not only showing violence in front of him and interpersonal and involving him in their infidelities, but then as well when he had issues, ignoring him. So, and the other interesting thing that was happening in this case, so we'll see if that's granted and they're allowed to use that. I think it's the prosecutors are also looking at, I think it's the prosecutors and not the family, but the people are suing the school administration. I think it is the counselor, somebody, or maybe the security at the school. So the security, like the school is also going to take some blame in this because they were aware of this situation and aware of the parents' like unwillingness or inability to deal with it, and yet somehow the child was still sent back to the class without having his, he didn't have his backpack checked. He typically in schools nowadays, if a child gives any sign of being a school shooter, any sign saying I'm going to shoot up something, or saying I'm angry, or drawing, like he was drawing pictures of a gun and students, like people bleeding on the floor, and saying he hated the kids, that would immediately get a phone call to police. The person would be arrested. The underage person would be arrested and looked at as a terrorist. For some reason, the Oxford school, I don't know if they felt sorry for him because his parents didn't seem to even care, if they didn't take it as seriously. I'm not sure they were aware. They certainly weren't aware of everything he was posting online, where he was saying, I'm going to shoot up the school. Or I want to be a school shooter. They weren't aware of his journal. But then again, they didn't look in his backpack. And schools have every right. Underage children do not have the same rights as grown-ups do anywhere. Like, you can look in their backpack. You can look in their locker. They don't have privacy rights. So when he was expressing all this, and because his parents, it is a wonder. It's just unfortunate why, I don't understand why the police weren't called at that point, why he wasn't searched, why his locker wasn't searched for weapons. I know that the parents didn't say, oh yeah, we bought him a gun. And nobody had gone and looked on his social media, which I think if a kid's in trouble, number one, get into their social media accounts. But again, hindsight is 20/20. So that is what is happening with the Crumbley case. We will see if the prosecutors are able to go forward with that line of defense of prosecution. Personally, I think Ethan Crumbley has schizophrenia, and I think he was given no support at home, and this is the outcome. And that doesn't mean, I think we need to have mental institutions, because I don't think he belongs out in the street, but I don't think he's a kid and he's in an adult jail, and that's not going to help his mental status. So, the society is doing the same thing as parents did. Well, you suck. We're just going to throw you away and lock away the key. Like, it's just, anyways. That's the Crumbley case. So, for the Robert, I'm saying a lot. That's my filler word, right? For the Robert Crimo, again, case, we have Smirnoff Ice, red, white, and berry. It's a nice cooler. He's just a kid, sort of, still. And also, I'm going to use red, white, and blue, because why? Because it was 4th of July. So, if you remember, Robert Crimo was allegedly, I think almost admittedly, the individual who got on top of a building. He was wearing a woman's dress and a wig to help hide. He scaled the exterior fire escape and then was up above a intersection in Highland Park for the 4th of July parade. What a nice kid. So, Robert, why am I even talking about him? Well, over this past week, there was an 118-page indictment with 117 counts. He pled not guilty. Now, if you know, that's tiring when we know somebody did something. He was basically seen, and he dropped his weapon. The weapon was registered to him and had his DNA on it. This is not a mystery at all. So, at this point, we're looking, there's, for every person he killed, he's indicted for murder. And then there's like 40-some attempted murders from the people who were injured. It's the 17 people were killed. He is never going to get out of jail. We'll see what happens to him. So that's the big thing, was that he pled. There is more to this story. After talking about the Crumbleys, the one interesting thing was, this kid was, it's not like, where were the red flags? He was a red flag factory. The thing was, he was making videos, he was being expressive, but he painted on the side of his father's house a smiley-faced killer holding a automatic weapon. Painted on the brick. So, like, I talked about that before. There's something, I just wonder, now, Robert was over age. He was, I don't remember if he was 20, 21, 23. He's not underage. But his first guns were signed for. He got a card to buy guns, and most of the guns used that he had on him, his father had signed for him. And it just seems odd because he had also had a history of wanting to unalive his family that the police had to come to the house for. I think, what can we learn from this? We know that domestic violence has a high overlap, correlation with later acts of violence. We know that a person starts at home. If someone is involved in any domestic violence, whether they be under 18 or over 18, we probably should have a minimum, they have to go see a psychologist. Like, they have to do something before we're just going to allow them to have any sort of weapons of mass destruction, like weapons of war, which is what he had. Sadie Mae. Oh, sorry. Sadie's trying to knock down the camera. We don't know why. But anyways, so yeah. I mean, similar to Ethan Crumbley, the kid's life is ruined, and the parents are all like, yeah, well, what could we have done? It just seems odd, right? Doesn't it seem odd? And Robert Cremillo's mom and dad have a weird story, in my opinion. This is just my speculation. I just think somehow she was part of a Mormon cult, and he is a much older man, and I don't know how he got her, and they weren't living together at the time of this incident, so divorced maybe, but I don't know. I believe the law enforcement in Highland Park may be talking about similar actions against the people who may have known about this and not done anything. I don't know what they can do. I mean, he was of age. It's not like he's Ethan Crumbley's age, where definitely the parents had some very immediate responsibility. But, wow. Just sad. All right, so that was our two shooter cases. And we're going to move to our court updates for the next flight. If you liked, if you have any comments, please give us a thumbs up or whatever. It's hard to say, did you like this? It's horrific, right? Especially this flight is very difficult. But if you have anything to say about this, if you think the parents aren't responsible, if you think they are, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Like and subscribe. Let me know if you want to hear more about this. And we'll go on to the next flight. Thank you for watching.